Welcome to the Parashat Noach. This is a fascinating piece at the end of the parasha where after having made a covenant with God, Noach, his children were asked to spread around the earth. And instead of that, the descendants of Noach decide to come together. They find a valley, and in that valley, they decided to build a city to accommodate all of them and to build in the middle of the city a tower to reach the sky, to have a war with God. In fact, the Midrash that the Alshech quotes states that they want to put on top of this tower an idol with a sword in its hand, pretending to fight God. I mean, it's such a preposterous idea, and it invited me to just try to understand it a bit more. It's interesting that this group of people wanted to create for themselves a name so that they don't get dispersed. So the Alshech asks, why are they building a city with all of them in it when God wanted them to spread around the world? Why did they build a tower? Do they really think they can fight against God and win? I mean, that's the most ridiculous. And what is the connection with making a name for themselves and the tower? And why should that stop them being dispersed? And if you were like me to think that this is such a ridiculous script, it sounds more like a script out of Star Wars than something out of the Bible. And yet we see that God not only takes it seriously, he has to come down, descend to the world to see what's happening, decides that they're having one language, and if this is what they're going to do with this power of unity, then we better stop them, and we'll stop them. God stops them by making them have 70 languages and dispersing them through the world. How do we understand this? The Alshech, in his beautiful explanation of this, develops 8 principles of the universe to help us to understand that. And these principles are so powerful that they can help us to look at history and analyze it and understand it, and even current affairs. So here are the 8 principles. The first principle is that every sanctified or spiritual power has an equal yet opposite external power of impurity. Examples of this is Moshe, the spiritual leader of the Jewish people, had to have an equivalent prophet with equal power, Bilam. Yaakov and Esav, everything comes in duality with facing each other. The second principle is that the quality of something pure, purity and sacredness, is the character of unity. And the quality of something impure, or the external forces, is division. We learn that the neshamot, the souls of the Jewish people, the souls of Israel, come from a pure place because they're described in several cases as being one nation, one soul. For example, when Jacob goes down to Egypt, they're described as 70 souls, but not souls in plural, souls in singular, shivim nafesh. And also when they camp in Mount Sinai waiting to receive the Torah, they're also described in the singular, Vayechan Sham Israel. So these are clues that gives us the idea that Israel comes from a very spiritual, holy area. The fourth principle is that every external force cannot exist without a connection to purity. It would just disintegrate. And that's why they need their celestial representatives to kind of channel the bounty of God that sustains the world through their representatives. The fifth principle is fascinating. It says that when Israel follows the path it has been given and the laws it was chosen to follow, then the bounty comes through Israel. Through to all the other nations enjoy the bounty that initially comes through Israel. When Israel doesn't perform according to their task, then all the bounty comes to the other nations, and Israel is in exile, and they just get the leftovers, and they're under the control of the guardian angels of the other nations. And the sixth principle is that the divine presence has extreme discomfort, more than we can imagine, when the channel of energy and light does not come through the preferred route. And that is that the bounty of the whole world comes through Jerusalem. That's the seventh one. So how do we understand all of this? How do we understand the motivation behind the people of that generation? We learned earlier in the Parashat that God makes a covenant with Noah, having decided after 10 generations from Adam to Noah, a period of disaster, seven sins were created, and the presence of God, so to speak, was pushed out to the seventh heaven by each sin, and was about to be pushed further out. I think the leaders of that of the generation of the Tower of Babel, led by Nimrod himself, felt that they could push God, so to speak, even further out, so that man could not only have control over the world, the earth, but also over the spiritual powers. And the way they wanted to do that was to unite together under one alternative energy of an idol, the Samach Mem, and that's the idol they wanted to put on top. And this unity was essential for their success, because they wouldn't be able to achieve it without it. So how did they do that? They found this valley and they persuaded everyone to come in. How did they persuade it? The leaders themselves came in and said, let's make bricks, because there's no stones in the valley, and let's build this massive towers. And it was huge. It's so huge we can't even imagine how on earth a population just 2,000 years after the creation of the world was able to build such a tall empire, as it were. And then they brought all the people together under this idol, and they were going to, so to speak, pretend to fight a battle against God. What were they objecting to? They were objecting to two things. Firstly, they saw through the horoscopes that Abraham is going to be come into the world and to become a direct connector with God, and to pull down the bounty that the world needs to sustain itself. You remember that last week when we talked about the purpose of man, it was that the man was able to rise up into his spiritual soul and pull down that bounty. And Noah having Noah's generation having let go of that, Abraham was just ready to take its place. So they were against Abraham, and what consoled them is that through their horoscopes, they saw that he was going to be childless, and they actually made fun of him. He said, "You childless thing. Your influence is going to be very temporary in this world, because there's no one to take after you." Even his disciples didn't stay with him afterwards. So they were consoled by that. But remember that Abraham's and the Jewish people's key message to the world is in the Shema. Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hashem is our God, He is one. And they were objecting to this unification under Abraham of this divine spiritual creator of the world. And so they felt that they would be able to dispose of God and say, God created the world and He's not going to be interested in us now. We're masters of our own destiny. Let's just take control. And their purpose is to be focused on material mastery of the world. So that's what happened. And God actually has to come down and disintegrate the whole thing and disperse the whole thing, because, believe it or not, it could have worked. And this is what's so puzzling to me. How on earth could it have worked? To discuss this and to bring out the relevance of this teaching to our lives in 2022, I'm delighted to invite my mentor, my teacher, Yoel Turjuman, on our live Zoom on Tuesday at 7 o'clock. It's going to be fascinating. I'm going to be posing all these questions and more for him, and to really extract all the lessons that we can bring into our lives today. I hope you can join me. God bless you, and look forward to seeing you then. If you like this wisdom, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and stay up to date.